we've been learning that there are some situations where we find something, particularly we find documents, and counterintuitively, we don't give them back. We don't give them back to the person that it seems would have lost them. And in we maybe there's a suspicion of fraud we learned. But now, in picking up in the seventh Mishnah in the first chapter, so we're in Bava Metzia, we're in the first chapter of the seventh Mishnah. Maybe there's some anxiety that the person who lost them never intended to deliver them at all. Let's jump into the Mishnah. Matzah jitei nashim. So someone found a bill of divorce. Someone had written out a bill of divorce to divorce his wife. Veshichruchei avadim, or a bill of emancipation for a slave. I mean, it's disturbing but real, but the Mishnah always equates bills of divorce to bills of emancipation for slaves. Daitike. Now, daitike, that's a Greek word, but it means basically it's a deed that disposes of your assets after you die. So effectively, it's a will. It's a will. A daitike is a will. Matana, obviously a deed of a gift, veshovarim, and a receipt. All of these categories, the bill of divorce, emancipating a slave, a will, a gift, a receipt, hare ze lo yachzir, he should not return them. Shani omer, I might have said, ketuvim hayu venimlach shelo litnan. This guy might have said, gosh, I wrote them out, or to be literally, they were written out, because they would have been written out by a professional scribe. I guess that's why there's a possibility of changing his mind. It's not as if someone sits down at his desk and writes out a bill of divorce. He's going to need to book an appointment with a scribe in the market to get this bill of divorce written out. And then he's going to go home. And he might have said, Ketuvim hayu, they were written out. Venimlach shelo litnan. And he might have changed his mind, that he didn't want to hand them out. And we've learned before that the Talmud views divorce like the author is shedding tears. So we can see why it's quite possible someone might have thought about divorcing his wife, but had second thoughts. Having said that, there are other categories of document which, if we do find, we absolutely do return. And these are mainly documents. Well, these are the examples in this Mishnah all come from documents written out by a court. And of course, when the court writes the document, we don't have any anxiety about fraud. And we don't have any anxiety about someone changing their mind. I mean, when the court writes a document, it writes a document. And so we read, Matzah igrot shum ve'igrot mazon. So we found letters of evaluation or valuation. So the court has valued someone's assets for some purpose, maybe, for example, as part of maybe as part of a loan note. Maybe we're taking a charge. Maybe we're taking security over this property. So we need to value it. The court needs to value it before we agree the loan. Or ve'igrot mazon, letters of maintenance. This is probably essentially taking the assets of the man in order to support his wife or his daughters. So mazon here, literally food, actually refers to maintenance. Shtarei chalitza u'mu'unim, documents of chalitza or refusal. Well, these all essentially exempt women from marriage or allow them to remarry. So a woman performs chalitza, the ceremony with the spitting and the shoe, to avoid marrying her brother-in-law if her husband dies without issue. And refusal, me'unim. So with the chalitza document, well, there'll be a document certifying the chalitza. And that's a really important document for a woman to hold because that document allows her to marry. So absolutely, you find that kind of document, you return it. Me'un, refusal. Well, if an underage girl is married, she has the legal right to refuse her husband when she becomes of age. And by the way, she doesn't need a bill of divorce. She can refuse. She doesn't have the status of a divorced woman. She walks away. And that is also is documented in a document. And that's a very valuable that's a valuable, precious document. It allows her to marry. And to marry without the status of a divorcee. She can marry a kohen. So she needs that document. What else? Shitare vrurim, documents of arbitration. So two parties in a dispute have agreed to appoint arbitrators and to be bound by the decision of the arbitrator. V'chol ma'aseh bet din, and here's the general case. Any document of the court, any documents written out by a court, he returns them. Absolutely. You return a document of court if you find it to the person concerned. Matzah, b'chavisa, or the glascoma. We've seen glascoma before in the Mishnah. It's some kind of satchel or chest. He found documents in a satchel or a bag. Tachrich shel shtarot. He found them in some bundle of documents, or agudah shel shtarot, in some tied up set of documents. Harei ze achzir. He actually returns them. He returns them. We can't assume that these have been deliberately put aside. But how many is a bundle of documents? It's like the classic philosophical question. How many leaves on the ground make up a pile of leaves? How many leaves do you need to make a pile of leaves? Well, we all know, but it's hard to define. And similarly, how many documents make up a bundle? Well, the Mishnah says, shloshak shurot zeh, three tied up together. Once you've got three documents, you've got a bundle. And Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is going to be a bit more precise here. And the Rambam comments that the halacha goes according to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. So he says, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, he says, let's say one person borrowed from three lenders. This guy, it's a bit like, it's very common actually in today's financial markets. One person will borrow, but under that facility, there might be more than one lender. One person borrows from three, yachzir la loveh. He should return to the borrower. What's the logic there? Well, if you've got three loan notes documenting this loan, three different lenders, but one borrower, the supposition is that it's the borrower who's holding it. I mean, the borrower is the common thread here. So we're going to return to the borrower. What if three are borrowing from one lender? In this case, we're going to return them. He should return them to the lender. The presumption in this case is, okay, the lender is the common thread here. He's filing his loan notes together. He's got these three loans to these three borrowers. He's filing them together. We return them to the lender. Matzah shtar bein shtarotav. Someone found a document among his documents. And this, again, is a classic situation. How do you lose a document? Well, you file it among a pile of different documents. You'll never find it again. So he's going through his documents. He finds this document that doesn't belong. Matzah shtar bein shtarot. He finds a document among his documents. Ve'ein yadua ma tivo. He doesn't know what it is. What it's literally mativo, what its nature is. He doesn't understand this document, what it's doing, where it comes from. He doesn't understand. Yehemunach ad sheyavo Eliyahu. It must be left until Eliyahu comes, until Elijah comes. At some point, someone will come and interpret this document. And for the moment, we just set it to one side. We keep it safe. We keep it safe. But we have faith that Eliyahu will come and interpret it. Im yesh imahem simfonot. If there were simfonot among them. Now, that's a very odd word. It's a Greek word, a simfonot. And maybe it means a postscript or a codicil. We'll see Tosafot Yom Tov means it's effectively a note of cancellation of the loan. Anyway, if he finds simfonot, im yesh imahem simfonot, if there are simfonot with them, ya'aseh ma she b'simfonan. He should do whatever is stated in their simfonot. And we'll see Tosafot Yom Tov here. He actually says, Kol davar Hashem mevatel davar kari simfon. Or simpon, actually. He writes it with a P. So he says anything which cancels something is called a simpon. And then he quotes Tosafot that in the hand of a lender it's called a simpon. Biyad hamalveh kari simpon, biyad haloveh shover. In the hand of a borrower, it's called a receipt. We all know this word shover. It is a receipt. When the borrower repays his loan, he gets a receipt and he holds on to that receipt as evidence he's repaid the loan. But it seems somehow as though the lender, mixed up with his loan notes, has got a document saying that he's been repaid. He's been repaid. And this document's just in his loan notes. And we can see as a lender, he might have been tempted perhaps to destroy or to destroy that document. Maybe he is tempted to try to collect twice on that loan. So the Mishnah is careful. I think that's why the Mishnah is careful to say, Ya'aseh ma she bi simfonan. He has to do what is stated in their simfonot. He has to do whatever his notes say. If the loan's been repaid, the loan has been repaid. There's no way round. We can't get around that if we're an honest lender.